Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're going to take it nice and easy. We're going to focus on our shoulders a bit, but we're, as always, going to move lots of our parts to kind of complement the shoulders. And part of what I'm going to be cueing you to do is to connect with your bones today. So I've got my little skeleton here just to give you a few visuals of some of the landmarks I'm going to be talking about. So we are going to be working with our shoulders. And a lot of times, what I like to do is give you tips for how to isolate some of these movements. So, for example, if we're doing a rotation in the arm moving in the shoulder socket, I'll cue you to notice if your whole shoulder wants to move, just to see what kind of range of movement you have in your shoulder without using everything else. But you can see here around the shoulder on the back of the body, we have the shoulder blade, the scapula, and it's actually connected to this bone along the front, your collarbone. They're all one unit. So when your arm moves in your shoulder socket, which is just right on the side of the structure here, the whole thing moves together. So we'll try and connect that sense of the bones moving, because at least the collarbone on the front of your body is pretty easy to feel and connect with. So it's kind of fun to get that sense of connection to your own bones. I think it's fun, but I'm a nerd about that stuff. So the shoulders are a really mobile joint, which just means they can move really, really easily in lots of different ways. It means they're a little bit less stable of a joint, but they have lots of different ways they can move. And ideally, this whole structure, the bony structure, can move at the same time as movement of the arm. Sometimes though, these shoulder blades get kind of stuck, get kind of sticky. They should be able to glide on the back of your rib cage, but for a lot of us, they don't. Or if you're like me, you can feel that one side moves a lot better than the other. So what I try and do for that is if I'm moving my arms in a certain way, if I notice one side's moving a lot more, I'll kind of slow that side down and try and even them out. But see what works for you. Just kind of treat it as a bit of an experiment. And we'll also be paying attention to the bones of the pelvis as we move. And I often like to bring your attention to the sacrum, which is this little triangular bone at the base of the spine between the two hip bones. It's kind of the keystone of the whole structure of the pelvis. So we're going to start laying on our back, and you can kind of try and connect to the parts of your body that are touching the ground. So that'll be your hip bones, that'll be the sacrum in the middle, that'll be your shoulder blades, and obviously the back of your head. So it's nice to start with a little visual, and we'll kind of bring it to life a bit as we go. So we're going to start laying on our back. You have the option also to sit in your chair if you prefer. And I'll join you on the mat and give you a little bit of instructions for how to use a blanket as a prop. We will use a blanket when we get started. And you have the option to use your yoga straps. You can have that nearby. And everything else can just move out of the way for now. So if you'd like to use the blanket, you can grab it and open it up so you've got an edge about this long. And we're just going to fold that edge up a little bit. So I'm going to fold it over just a couple of inches. We're going to rest our spine on the blanket strip. So you want it to be not too narrow, not too wide. Think about what makes sense for your spine to rest on. And then I'm going to do another layer. So I'm just going to pinch where the blanket meets the rest of the blanket there and accordion fold to bring it over. And then bring that up to the top of your mat where your head will be, and try to line it up along the center of your mat. And what we're going to do is lay down on our back so that your spine is resting on this blanket strip. And we want the bottom edge of the blanket strip to kind of line up with the part of your spine that is around the base of your shoulder blades. So, and when you come down to your back, I'll give you a reference point on the front of your body to kind of check if you've got it in the right spot. So once you're on your back, you can feel for the lower border of your rib cage and kind of trace your fingers up, walk them up to the center point where the two sides of your rib cage meet. And that spot where they meet, you want to think about having that edge of the blanket directly below that. So you can kind of adjust yourself, get to the point where you feel like you're in that position. And then just let your arms rest on the ground by your sides, whatever's most comfortable. Maybe you want to turn your palms to face up towards the ceiling. And if you're comfortable here, just allow your shoulder blades to feel like they can settle down towards the ground. You're welcome to be seated in your chair, just resting your hands on your legs. And wherever you are, bring your attention to your breath. And start by just taking a few deep breaths. Just beginning to arrive here in the room you're in. Feeling yourself laying on your mat or sitting in your chair. And if you're on your back, just allowing your shoulder blades to feel heavy, as if they could sink down towards the ground a little bit more. It's okay if they're not touching the ground if you're lifted up by the blanket a bit. And then take a moment to check in with yourself. Just bring your attention inwards. Notice how you feel today. And try to notice without any kind of commentary or judgment or stories about how you feel. Just observe. Just notice what you notice. And now bring your attention back to your breath and take a few minutes to just observe the rhythm of your breath. You don't need to change anything about your breath. Just notice the quality of your breath as it is right now. So it might be fast, it might be slow, it might feel smooth, it might feel kind of jagged. Whatever it is, just notice. And now for a few rounds of breath, place more of your attention, most of your attention on your exhales. You're just following the length of your exhale with your attention. For now, regarding your inhales as just kind of a pause between those exhales. And still here, you don't need to change anything about your breath. Just notice what happens when you focus on the exhale. All right. And now let's try out some movement. So, if you have a yoga strap or a belt or anything like that, you can grab it and just hold it with your hands about shoulder distance apart, your arms fairly straight. If you're on your back, just lift your hands up towards the ceiling and let your shoulder blades sink back down towards the ground. And if you're seated, you could do the same position, just reaching your arms straight out in front of you, allowing your shoulders to be soft. Okay, from here, we're going to do just a tiny little movement. Just reach your hands, reach the strap up towards the ceiling or straight out in front of you if you're seated. And then soften. Let your shoulder blades sink down towards the ground or just come back to relaxing. And try that a couple times, just lift and lower. And what we're going to look for here is soft, easeful movement. So you might get curious. Are you tensing or bracing anywhere in your body? Maybe you find that you're gritting your teeth a little bit or tensing in your belly or shoulders. See if you can move with softness. And then let that go. Come on back to stillness for a breath. And this time we're going to keep our shoulder blades relaxed and on the ground if you're on your back. And we're just going to lift our arms up overhead a bit. So just bringing that strap up overhead and then lifting it back up to the starting place. We'll try this a few times. See if you can move without needing your rib cage to move. So if you notice when you reach your arms up overhead that your ribs want to pop up, then make the arm movement smaller so that this can be just an arm movement, not a spinal movement or a rib cage movement. And just get curious how much movement is there. It might be that you're not moving very far, and that is perfectly fine. Just explore. Try to keep that nice, soft, easeful quality to the movement. And we'll let this one go when you're ready. Set the strap off to the side. Maybe you want to give your arms a little shake out here. And then bring them back to the starting place, resting by your sides. Breathe easy. Notice how everything feels. If you are on your back, you can notice where your shoulder blades are in space. Maybe they feel a little bit closer to the ground after some of those movements. Maybe not. That's fine too. Let's take one or two more breaths here before we change it up. Okay. And now, when you're ready, we're going to roll over to the side just so that we can grab that blanket and move it out of the way. Okay. And come flat onto your back. And just notice how you feel. And if you're on your back, here's where you can tune in to notice all of the parts of the back of you that are touching the ground. Back of your head, shoulder blades and upper back, your arms, your low back, back of your pelvis, your legs or your feet. And if you're seated, just visualize those bony parts of the back of your body as well. All right. Bring arms and legs up towards the ceiling. If you're seated, just do this with just your arms and just give everything a bit of a wiggle. Nice. All right, bring everything back down to the ground, but have your knees bent if you're seated and your feet planted on the ground. Now we're going to move our legs a little bit. So let's just lift one leg up towards the ceiling. And if you're seated, same thing, just bring one foot up off the ground a little bit. Just going to do a little bit of gentle movement through the leg. So if you're on the ground, just lower that leg down towards the ground and lift it back up a little bit. And try that a few times. If you're seated in the chair, you can hold on to the back of your leg and do a little bit of a lift and lower. Nice. Whatever suits you here, just to start to move this leg a bit. And if you're on your back, can you just allow the back of your body to stay nice and heavy, connected to the ground? Let's switch sides. Same thing with the other leg. And sticking with this nice, easeful, gentle movement. So this does not need to be the biggest possible leg movement that you can do. Just try to keep that nice sense of heaviness in the rest of your body so that your leg is floating based on this nice base of support. Okay, we'll let this one go. Place your foot back down on the ground. Nice. If you're on the ground, you can walk your feet a little farther away from your seat, a little wider apart, and just windshield wiper your knees from side to side a couple times. All right, coming back to the starting place, a little bit more of a neutral position. If you're on your back, you can bring both knees in towards your chest. Just give yourself a little hug. If you're seated in your chair, you can just do this one leg at a time, just lifting one up, hugging it towards your chest. If you're on your back, you can add a little bit of a rocking motion from side to side. All right, come on back to center. Bring your feet back down to the ground. Bring your arms up again. Nice. And just hold on to your opposite shoulders. Let your elbows just rest on your chest. Now we're just going to do a little bit of a twisty movement in the upper body. So whether you're seated or on the ground, just kind of twist over to one side. If you're on the ground, it's kind of like your elbows are just drawing down towards the ground a little bit on one side and then the other. Same thing, does not need to be a big giant movement, just a nice gentle rocking side to side. All right, bring your torso back to center. And we're just gonna move our neck this time. So you can let your arms stay here if they're comfortable here. Looking up towards the ceiling if you're on your back, or straight ahead of you if you're seated. And just let your head slowly rock side to side. Let your breath be nice and easy as you move. Okay, come on back to center. Release your arms. All right. Now we're going to do a little bit of rocking motion in the hips and the legs. And so if you're seated in a chair, we're just going to do a kind of different movement. For that, what we're going to do is lift one knee up off the ground, hold on to the back of your leg if that's comfortable, and just do some circly movements. But if you're on your back, lift both of your knees up. What I like to do is cross one ankle over the other. So our knees are staying bent. And all we're going to do is rock the hips side to side. And now I like to have my arms up on my sides. You can have your palms down or the back of your hands down. Just give you a little bit of support as you rock your hips side to side. Maybe you can see if you can keep your shoulder blades on the ground. It means the little rocking motion will be smaller at pelvis, but that's okay. And now just pause over on one side. And what we're going to do now is move our legs a little bit away from us so that you're putting your weight a little bit more down in the base of your sacrum, closer to your tailbone. And then rock over to the other side and lift your knees up a little closer to your chest. And we're going to go side to side, this kind of half circle motion, going back to center, moving your knees away from you and over to the side, bringing them a little closer to you. So try that a couple of times. And if you're seated, just kind of giving both legs a little bit of attention, doing those circles. All right, come on back to center. Give yourself a little hug. Doing this one knee at a time if you're seated in your chair. Okay, keep one knee in towards your chest and just stretch the other leg long. And so if you're seated on the ground, that will mean the other leg is straightening and your heels just resting on the ground. Nice. Just take a breath or so here. And then we'll switch sides. And let it go. Come on back to the starting place, both feet on the ground. Take a breath here. Let's do one more hip stretch before we change it up and come up to seated. So if you're on your back, I'll lead you through this if you're on your back, and then I'll lead you through if you're on your chair. So if you're on your back, lift one leg up towards the ceiling. And the other leg, have that knee bent and the foot on the ground. We're going to do a figure four stretch. So the leg that is reaching up towards the ceiling, add a little bit of external rotation so that your toes and your knee are turned out to the side a bit. And then bend this knee and cross your ankle over the other knee. Nice. Stay there for a breath or two. If you're seated on your chair, if this is your feet on the ground, you can cross one ankle over the other ankle or the ankle over the other knee, whatever works for you. And now if you're on your back, if you want, you can lift the other foot off the ground and just hold on to the back of your thigh. You can hold on with your hands, but if this is a really big stretch, you can grab that strap and wrap it around the back of your leg. I'll try and show you here, like that, so that you can hold onto the strap instead of using your hands to hold the leg itself. So just take a couple of breaths wherever you are. I like to picture breathing into the outer hip, wherever it is that you feel some stretch. And when you're ready, let's unravel, bring both feet back to the floor. I could do that stretch all day. Take a breath and let's switch sides. Other leg up. If you're on your back, start with external rotation and then bend your knee, crossing ankle over knee. If you're on your chair, it could be ankle over ankle or ankle over knee. It's up to you. And then maybe bringing the other knee in if you like, if you're on your back. And just breathe easy wherever you are. And just like with some of the movements we did before, if you find when you're in this stretch that you're tensing up somewhere, see if you can soften. See if you can notice those areas of bracing or tensing and just send your breath there, picturing a little bit more softness. And slowly unravel your legs, bring everything back down to the ground. And take a moment, do any kind of little movements or stretches you would like. All right. And if you're on your back, you could bring your knees in towards your chest. And now we're going to really slowly and gently make our way all the way over to our side. And then come on up to a seat. Let that be a really nice, slow, and gentle movement. And just find your way to a seat. If you're already in your chair, you're perfect. If you're not comfy sitting on the ground, then come on up and sit in a chair. We can do everything we're about to do perfectly fine in the chair. So find your way to a position that is comfortable for you. And if you're sitting on the ground, but you find that you're sitting with your knees way up here or your back really rounded, sit up on some sort of prop. So it might be that you take that blanket and you fold it up to make a little bit of a cushion. Or maybe you have a nice cushion you can sit on. Or it could be that you'd like to sit on a block. It's up to you. The goal is just to have your spine be a little bit more upright without too much of a collapsing forward. and be a little bit more comfortable in your hips. We don't often sit on the ground in our everyday lives, so sometimes we need to do what we need to do to feel more comfortable here. Okay. And what we will probably use here is a block. So if you have a block, you can have it nearby. Okay. So once you're comfortable, once you're settled, just rest your hands on your legs, soften your shoulders, take an easy breath. And let's start off with some simple sun breaths. So as you inhale, bring your arms out to the sides and up. Draw your palms together. As you exhale, trace your hands down the center line of your body. Do that a couple more times. Nice, easy movement. Breathe easy as you go. You might like to kind of picture what's happening in the bones around your shoulder as you move. One more time, lifting your arms up. This time, keep your hands up. And as you exhale, bring your right hand back behind you and your left hand forward. With an inhale, come back up to center. And then exhale, go the other way. And a few breaths like this. The next time you come back to center, just let it go. Let your arms come back down. Give them a little bit of a shake. Rest your hands on your legs. Now let's give our spine a little bit of attention. Tune into your breath. We're going to do some seated cat and cow. And as we go, you can move with your breath if that's comfortable. So as you inhale, arch your back and just roll your shoulders back a little bit, maybe looking up. And then with your next exhale, round your spine and just curl your shoulders forward, tuck your chin in a bit. Now you can keep going along with the rhythm of your breath, or you can go a bit slower or faster if you like. And come back to a more neutral spine. Do some simple shoulder circles, just circling them up and back a couple times. And the other way a couple times. Nice, soften, let that go. Now we'll do a few rotations in our arms. So take one hand, I'm going to start with my left hand on my right shoulder. Just bring this right arm out by your side. Or sorry, I'm mixing that up. Whichever arm's out by your side here. With your hand on the front of your shoulder, do a few rotations here. So we're not circling, we're just rotating the arm in the shoulder socket. Nice. You could notice here if your shoulder wants to move along with the rotation, just back it up a little bit and try to just rotate this upper arm bone in your shoulder socket. See if it wants to move or not. See if you're holding your breath or tensing anywhere and still trying to move with ease. Let it go, shake it out. Other side, same thing. Soften your shoulder. Try your rotations here. The other hand can give you some feedback. If your shoulder wants to roll forward, if it wants to lift up, just get curious. Breathe easy as you go. Let it go, shake it out. Nice. Rest your hands, take a breath. For a breath or two, just rest your hands on your low ribs, on the sides, on the front, wherever you like. And just breathe easy. Maybe tuning in to notice. Can you feel a sense of movement at your rib cage as you breathe? You might be able to sense that gentle expansion as you inhale and softening back as you exhale. Notice if you're scrunching your shoulders up when you do this. Can you soften them? And let it go. Shake your arms out. I had a teacher one time who talked about the rib cage and how it moves. They said we should really call it a basket instead of a cage. It is protecting some of these important organs, but it's not like it's a static cage, it moves. So let's look at movement in another part of our skeleton. Find your collarbone on the front of your body. Usually it's pretty easy to find, but you might need to dig a bit to find it. And what I like to do here is kind of feel top and bottom of the collarbone. So it's as if you're just kind of holding it between your fingers a little bit there. Nice. Once you've got it, you're just going to rest your hand here gently. Bring your arm out in front of you. Nice. So kind of straight out in front of you, kind of parallel to the ground. We're going to do the same movement we did at the very beginning of the class. So just reach your arm forward and draw it back. As you draw it back, maybe you even like to try and pull your shoulder blade back towards your spine. And do that a few times. Just notice what's going on with your collarbone. Is it moving? Is it not moving? Doesn't need to be the biggest movement in the world. Just getting curious here. Let it go. Shake your arm out. Nice. Let's do the second movement we tried out. So bring your arm out in front of you with your fingers on that collarbone. Do a little bit of lifting and lowering. Nice. Can you feel it move a little bit? Maybe yes, maybe no. Let this one go. I'm going to do half a sun breath with one arm out to the side. So lifting it up out to the side and down the center line. Nice. Try that a few times. And as you move, remember that collarbone and the shoulder blade on the back of your body are connected. You might like to picture your shoulder blade on the back of your body moving along with the collarbone. Nice. Let's let this go. Shake her out. Rest your hands. Soften your shoulders and breathe here. Maybe notice how your shoulders feel now, how your neck feels. You might notice that one side feels different than the other after a few of those movements. Okay, so let's even ourselves out now. So find the other collarbone, bring your arm out in front of you. Soften your shoulders so you're not starting from being up here. And just reach forward and draw back. And as you move, nice easeful movement. You may check in with your breath. See if you're breathing smoothly. And kind of picture those bones moving. Okay, come on back to a more neutral place. Let's lift and lower. You might be able to feel your collarbone a lot more at a certain point in this range. It might kind of feel like it disappears under some of those softer tissues as you move. No right answer, just getting curious here. Let's try our half sun breaths. Arm out to the side and back down. Try this one a few times. And let's let it go. Shake it out. Nice. Maybe you'd like to have a few more shoulder rolls here. Okay. Let's come back to our rotations. So bring one arm out to the side again. And just start with some of those rotations. Nice and gentle. As you go, keep this rotation going, but notice your spine. If you're kind of crunched forward, bring a little bit of a sense of alertness to your posture. Soften tops of your shoulders at the same time, and then just tip your head over in the other direction away from this arm that's rotating. And keep your rotations going. Just let your head be heavy here as if your ear is wanting to drop down towards your shoulder a bit. And then maybe turn your nose down towards your shoulder. Try that out. And keep your head where you are, but pause your arm movement when your palm is facing forward. And just bend at your wrist, pull your fingers back a bit. And let it go. Bring your hand back to rest. Let your head just hang down between sides of these movements. And can you really let your head go? You really let it be heavy. See if it wants to do that. And softly come on back up. Just plant your head on the very top of your spine. Let's do all that on the other side. So, starting your rotations first. Rotating with a softness in the top of your shoulders. So, you're not up here, you're settled down as best as you can with a sense of alertness in your spine and softness in your shoulders, both at the same time if you can. Tip your head over the other way. Just let it be heavy. Turn your nose down towards your shoulder. Pause with your palm facing forward. Bend your wrist, pull your fingers back. Breathe easy here. Alright, let's let it go. Let your head hang down for another breath or two. And slowly come on back up. And just have any kind of movement that you'd like. Find your way back to stillness. Rest your hands. Breathe nice and easy. Okay. When you're ready, tune into your breath again. Inhale, bring in both of your arms up. And then bring your right hand down to touch either the ground or the side of your chair. If you can't touch the ground this way, you can bring a prop under your hand. Lengthen through your spine. And start by just tipping your head to the side. And then slowly come into a whole side bend. Nice. Take a breath or so here. And slowly come on back up. Bring your right arm back up. If you like, at the top, interlace your fingers, flip your palms around and reach up. Okay, let that go. And we'll bring the other arm back down. Nice. With a long spine, start by just tilting your head to the side. And then just imagine that side bend kind of traveling down the length of your spine, reaching your arm over. Nice. Take a breath or so. And then come on back up. Bring your arms up. Maybe you want to reach up again. And let it go. Shake it out. Nice. All right. Rest your hands. Breathe easy. And just tune in. Notice how everything feels now. Notice if anything would like a bit of movement. Feel free to change the position you're sitting in if your legs need a break. Okay, let's do a few more of our rotations. So bring one arm out in front of you, bend your elbow. And if it's comfortable, you can bring your elbow a little closer to the midline of your body. And then bring the other hand to hold onto the outside of your elbow just to kind of keep it in place. Nice and gentle. If this hurts, then stay right out here. Doesn't matter. And now we're just going to rotate the arm by windshield wipering our forearm up and down. Nice. This can be as big or as small as you'd like. Notice when you do this, if the shoulder wants to pop up, And then try to make it smaller. Breathe easy. Okay, let that go. Let's switch sides with your elbow bent. Draw it in a little bit on its own, and use your other hand. So you're not pulling it in, you're just using this as a little bit of a guide. Try your rotations here. Nice. Find your easeful range of motion. If you find that your shoulder is clicking every time you do this, then make it smaller. See? Okay, let it go. Okay. And now, if you've got a block, you can grab that. So, what we're going to do with the block in general is to hold the short edges of the block between our forearms or our elbows. So, if you have a block, that's a nice thing to use. If you don't, you can just interlace your fingers and have your elbows kind of shoulder distance apart and hug them in towards each other as if you're holding a block. Okay, so what we're gonna do is start with either that position I just showed you or with your forearms holding the block. Nice. When you pick it up, if it's uncomfortable, just rearrange. See what you need to do to feel like you can hold this in place. Nice. Soften your shoulders. If they're up here, see if you can let them go a little bit. Squeeze your forearms in towards the block. And now we're just going to lift up and down a few times. Doing this with that little bit of engagement in your arms as you go. Just sucking your arms into the block. Or maybe you're just pulling your elbows together if you don't have the block. Notice which muscles are starting to light up a little bit when you do this. Okay, let it go. Set that block down for now. Shake it out. Maybe you want a few shoulder rolls here. Okay, and now same thing. If you don't have the block, same position. If you do have the block this time, what we're going to try and do is hold it with the short edge of the block lined up between your elbows instead of between your forearms. Now, this is, you might have to rearrange, it's a little bit awkward. What we're going to do is hold that block in place and try to reach your hands away from the block and keep your elbows holding it in place. So try that out. Yes, it's awkward. Nice. And if you're doing it without the block, it's just this movement. Maybe one more. Are you holding tension here? Are you going like, can you do it without that? Is it possible? Nice. Let it go. Shake it out. How do your shoulders feel now? A little bit more warmed up, maybe? Right. Block can go off to the side. Rest your hands, rest your shoulders. Breathe easy. Try a few shoulder circles. And soften. Bring them back to stillness. Okay. This next one we can do seated or standing. So if you are really sick of sitting on the ground, you can come up to your feet if you like. Okay, so we're gonna do some circle motions with our arms this time. So we've done a whole bunch of kind of isolated movements. Now we're gonna do some nice big circles. Okay, and so this time, one hand is gonna come to the front of your rib cage. And we're going to start our circles trying to isolate them just to the arm. And then we're going to maybe bring the ribs into the game. So bring one arm out by your side. Nice. Soften your shoulders. And we're going to circle up and back, starting with really nice and small circles. Breathe easy. Make those circles a little bit bigger as you go. And same old thing. Notice, are you tensing anywhere? Do your ribs want to move here? Or can you just explore how big you can make those circles with just your arm doing the movement? And you might picture again all the bones of your shoulder. You might have noticed when I showed you the skeleton that there's not a big, this is a ball and socket joint, but there's not a big socket here for the, yeah, it's a very mobile joint. So you can kind of feel that here. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe there's not a lot of movement to be had. That is fine. The next time you bring your arm up, you can let your rib cage come along for the ride. Make your circle really nice and big. The other arm can just rest if you like and just circle around nice and free. So this can be anything you like. Movement can be big, can be small. You can give it a break whenever you're ready. And let's let it go. Give it a shake. Let your arms just rest by your sides. Let your shoulders be heavy. And other side. Same thing. Start small, circling up and back. Noticing what happens in the rest of your body. Notice if you're holding your breath when you concentrate. See if you can do this and breathe at the same time. Gradually making your circles bigger. How big can they go without the ribs? And then let your ribs come along for the ride. Nice and big. If you're standing, you can even get a bit of a rhythm going here with your circles. It's up to you. When you're ready, let it go. Shake it out. Rest your hands. Breathe easy. And just notice how you feel. Tuning in with your shoulders, tuning in with your neck, your back, whatever else pops your attention when you try to observe. Okay. How's everyone doing? All right. Okay. So we're going to come back down to the ground and I'll kind of show you quickly what we're going to do. If you want to stay seated in your chair, you can. We're going to do that same kind of movement, but this time laying on our side. So before you come down to the ground, I'll just show you what it's going to look like. So we're going to lay on our side and you might want the blanket or the pillow under your head. And this time we're going to do this with our fingertips on the ground and just do these big half circles like this, or opening your chest up and coming into the big giant circle like that. Okay. So if you'd like to do it on the ground, come on down to lay on your side. If you'd like to stay in your chair, you're perfect right where you are. Make sure you've got lots of space around your mat to move your arm if you are coming down to the ground. Yeah, absolutely. I will show you again. Okay. So again, if you're seated, same old thing we were just doing, starting small, getting bigger in those circles. And if you're on the ground, lay on your side, bend your knees, bring them up enough that you feel like you've got a bit of support here in your lower body. The arm closer to the ground can be your pillow, or you can have a blanket or a pillow under your head as well. And the other one, just reach it straight out in front of you. Fingertips on the ground to start with. And just like we were starting with our small circles before, if you're on the ground, this is just going to look like a little bit of an arcing movement, bringing your arm up overhead and then back down. So, kind of starting with your chest facing forward only. And that might be where you stay. This might be a nice big arm movement. But if you want to make it a bit bigger, as you bring your arm up overhead, you can let your hand come up away from the ground and just roll your chest open so you're looking more up towards the ceiling and bring your arm all the way back down, kind of completing that big arcing shape. And then bring yourself all the way back to the starting place. So, really big, nice movement here. You can go just a little bit into the movement or right into the big twisty movement. It's up to you. And come on back to stillness when you're ready. take a breath here. All right, let's switch to the other side. So if you're on the ground, you can roll over to the other side. If you're in your chair, you can move over to the other arm. I'm switching over just so I can still face towards you. You can just roll right over. Same thing on this side. Starting small and gradually working your way into a bigger movement. And you don't have to make it as big as possible. You can stay in a range that feels better for you. When you're ready to let this go, come on back to a resting place and just breathe. Okay. And we are ready for our resting pose for the last couple of minutes of class. So you can find a position laying on your back or your side, or you're welcome to stay seated in your chair. It's totally up to you. Just take a moment to get yourself comfortable. While you get set up, I will turn the lights off here in the room. Taking your time to get as comfortable as possible. If you are sitting in your chair, see if you can sit back so that you can rest your back on the chair. What I like to do if I'm in a chair is to put something under my feet, like a couple of blocks or a pillow or something, so that I can rest back into the chair a bit. If you're on your back, you might like to rest a pillow or a blanket under the back of your knees. See what makes you feel comfy. We are going a couple minutes over time because we started a little bit late. So if anybody needs to go, please feel free. When you're ready, bring your attention back to your breath. And how does your breathing feel now towards the end of the class? As you continue to breathe, if you wish, you can place more of your attention on your exhales once again. You might notice as you exhale, there's a little bit of a sense of letting go as you breathe out. You might invite a sense of softening as you breathe out. Maybe a little bit more of a feeling of heaviness in your body, as if you can connect to your bones, allow your bones to be heavy. And just give yourself the next few minutes to do nothing, just resting here.